What family secret did you suspect in childhood, but weren't able to confirm until adulthood? My dad was in jail for a few months when I was around 8 years old. I was told he was at work and he couldn't call us because it was a really big project. I heard my mom talking about him being locked up and thought he got trapped in the vent somewhere. He did HVAC work. It made sense to me at the time, I guess. When he came back, it was like nothing changed. Turns out he was a drug dealer. Grandpa was illiterate. Most of my grandma's kids were not her husbands. Granny got around. I thought I had a half-sibling that my parents refused to discuss, based on my mother reading books about adopted children finding birth parents, and also she graduated a year later than her twin sister, because of rheumatic fever. I wondered if it was romantic fever. My dad died in 2006. In 2009 my mother called to tell me that my father had another daughter, and she'd just made contact with my mother. It turns out my father abandoned a pregnant girlfriend before he met my mother. He did tell my mother about the sordid affair but swore her to secrecy. So yes, I was right. Stunned to be right, but happy. My sister is my best friend now. My mother's potato soup was so good because it was mainly butter and cream with a few pieces of potato. That my aunt did not die of an asthma attack in her sleep, but took her own life. She had been very depressed. As an adult they admitted she purposely overdosed. As a child with asthma, I wish they had just told me the truth, because before I started to suspect it was a lie I was terrified that I was going to die too. I remember, as a teenager, thinking at one point my parents probably haven't had sex in years. This past fall my mom caught my dad cheating with men. He's gay. My nan had a daughter before she married my grandfather and he made her adopt the child out. The child would have been about 3 years old by that time. My nan and grandfather got together by default. They were messing around with each other behind their partners' backs and Nan got pregnant. Her partner left. His partner left. They were forced to marry each other. It was a marriage full of regrets and Granddad eventually left her for another woman. She died with her first husband's photo in her wallet. By luck, I found his family and it turned out that he also had her picture in his wallet when he died. I always found it weird that out of all 4 grandparents, we always called one of them by his name. Turns out he was my dad's stepfather and a total piece of shit. When he died, which to this day I'm unsure when it happened, only that I was around 20, my parents didn't even bother to tell us. That my Uncle Joe, who always came to family gatherings, wasn't really an uncle, but my dad's poker buddy who just loved free food. Didn't realize until adulthood that the overprotective behavior some of my family members had towards me when it came to my uncle was because they suspected him of being attracted to children. My uncle was the result of a secret love affair my grandmother had. Also that my aunt on the other side was gay. My dad was never a Navy SEAL, even though he spent my entire life telling me stories about it. It wasn't until he died that I found his DD 214. He was only in the Navy for 10 months and was discharged with under honorable conditions. He never fought in a war. He was never captured or shot. He never shot anyone. He was just a regular guy. I wish he knew that we never wanted him to be anything but our dad. My aunt was super gay. My 48F grandpa was murdered by an uncle married to mom's sister. He sexually abused my mother and her 3 sisters. He died when I was 4. I have vague memories of him. Just after he died my aunt divorced the uncle. At age 12, I overheard my other uncles, 2 were mom's brothers and 1 married mom's baby sister, talking about a vow they had made to keep me from being a victim of grandpa. At 16, I figured it out. The uncle that actually murdered him, a hero, was a jeweler and insulin-dependent diabetic. He used cyanide in jewelry making. Grandpa drank a 36-pack of beer every night. I suspected he injected cyanide into a random beer. My aunt saw Grandpa live at 2 a.m. Uncle woke up at 5 a.m. and Grandpa was dead and stiff. His body was cremated and Uncle vanished. I mentioned my suspicions to my cousin, who relayed them to his father. 3 years ago, the uncle was dying. He reached out to me and told me I had actually figured out how Grandpa died. He waited until he was dying since there is no statute of limitations for murder. That my married parents rarely had sex. Confirmed by my mom last year when she randomly told me while on a walk that they hadn't had sex in 17 years. No, I didn't ask her, she just brought it up. Thanks, Mom. I'm in my 30s. Man, I always suspected my grandma was hiding something in her old wooden chest. Every time I asked, she'd dodge the question with a smile. Turns out, it was full of love letters from my grandpa during World War II. Found them after she passed. It's like stepping into a romantic movie, except it's my family's history. Crazy how secrets can be so sweet, huh? I didn't suspect it per se. But I did spend much of my childhood wishing I had siblings, and thinking what if I was adopted or my parents had a secret other family when behold about 23 years ago I found out I have 3 half-siblings. You'll never meet them for reasons too extensive to explain here, but the coincidence is hilarious. I was an accident. My parents were already on the verge of a divorce and my mom suddenly got pregnant despite having tried for over 4 years. I always felt like I was in the way, or not welcome. My feelings were confirmed when my dad threw me out right after high school graduation.